Man, so this winter has been absolutely relentless. It just seems like it's been polar vortex and record-setting cold just time and time again. If you remember one of the previous videos I did, I actually commented on the fact that part of the bay was frozen. And that was really the motivation behind the video I did where we just talked about doing some preventative maintenance stuff for your comms equipment not bringing cold weather. Well, this week they are calling for, basically a snowstorm after snowstorm after snowstorm. And it's one of those things where it's kind of like, okay, we addressed the comms equipment, but what about the person using the comms? What about ourselves? How can we, better prepare ourselves and protect ourselves from the cold weather? So in this video, we are going to address, of course, some comms related things, but we're also going to address just some general preparedness items for operating out in the cold weather. So let's get into it.
Southwest units, all units, citizen reports officer needs help, 3742 West Martin Luther King Boulevard.
Winter can definitely be one of the most beautiful seasons that we have. While I consider myself a warm weather person, I cannot wait to retire and head south and not have to own a winter jacket. There are definitely some times where I really do enjoy the fact that we do experience winter. I like when it snows. I like being out sometimes in the crisp, cold air. You can just do different things, different feel. But one of the biggest challenges that winter brings about is the fact that, from snowstorms to icy roads, the cold weather can quickly turn what should be an enjoyable outing into a very dangerous situation. And one of the most serious risks that it brings is hypothermia. And on the most basic of basic levels of a definition, hypothermia is really just a situation in which the body is losing heat faster than it can produce it. Understanding how to prevent hypothermia and then, how to deal with it is definitely crucial for anyone that's looking to spend any time outdoors. And we all know, from people that work in public safety, people that just go out adventuring, and even just for the ham radio guys that are into doing summits on the air, parks on the air, winter field days, and also those that are affiliated with any sort of, ham related emergency response groups like races. It's the type of things where you may not have even been planning on going out into the cold. You are just called to now operate there. So it's important to understand some of these concepts and principles we're going to get into in this video. And the big thing here, I am going to do a video very, very topic specific on the recognition and then treatment of hypothermia. But this is going to be more of like the 30,000 foot view on some of the gear you can have, how comms can play a role in it, and just some, very, very a basic level of how you can help protect yourself against it if you do find yourself, in a, potential hypothermia type situation. So comms is a huge part of this channel. We are always continually saying, comms is a key element to any sort of preparedness planning, any sort of disaster or emergency that does happen. Comms are always going to be there and be an integral role. If you happen to be in some sort of disaster type situation, just being able to stay in contact with the outside world, doing that continuous information gathering is going to be very vital. One of the things I'm kind of curious about, and let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this, is with the development of a lot of these new HTs, they are putting the air band in them, which means they're capable of receiving the AM band. Well, with that, they're also still putting the FM radio receiver in there as well. And I don't mean, like the VHF and UHF ham frequencies. I'm referring to the, for lack of better terms, the music stations. Well, with that, what are your thoughts? Do you think they are actually going to start putting an AM, radio, like car radio, music radio, AM station ability in them? And the reason that I'm saying this is because, using history as the example, AM radio is always going to be the primary source for, your local news, weather, and even the relief instructions for any sort of civil unrest, tornado, earthquake, chemical spill, hurricane, snowstorm, power outage. You pick the disaster, AM radio is going to be key. And the reason that is because, as pretty much I'm sure the majority of you watching this channel know, As far as your FM radio is concerned, the VHF and UHF transmissions are primarily line of sight, and that's just due to their short wavelength. However, on the AM radio transmissions, they use a much longer, low frequency wavelength, which are easily reflected off of the Earth's ionosphere. And, without the disrupting effects of the solar energy in this field, especially at nighttime. And if you're, familiar with HF radio and you have your general license or your extra license and you've done a lot of HF work, it is a commonplace and very very possible to literally talk around the world on a QRP rig, which is like using a very low amount of power. And this makes the AM radio band ideal for providing emergency information to the largest geographic area using the fewest number of radio stations. People, especially now, probably aren't that aware that, during the 70s and 80s, the AM band was basically just becoming, somewhat of a wasteland, as the majority of listeners, predictably, headed for the higher quality stereo music on the FM band, which is not possible because the AM band is so prone to static. And another possibility of just thinking of, using these HTs with their receive capabilities, depending on what they are, in a disaster situation, could be something as simple as, depending on the band spectrum of your radio, could be the ability to receive the non-cable television stations. Because, if you're not familiar, the majority of those non-cable ones are still broadcasting their audio over the air. And that could just be another means to information gather, any local news or weather reports, or just give you a ton of information or even hope if it happens to be your rescue that they're reporting on. So now let's get into some of the gear that's easily accessible and easy to carry in your vehicle that will, really pay dividends if you happen to find yourself in a situation where you do have to combat against hypothermia. And as far as the vehicles go, I am planning on doing a video in the future, kind of some walkarounds of all of the vehicles that Rant incorporates, because each of us has our setup a little bit differently. But it would just be cool to kind of see how we have some things laid out, how our comms are laid out, because they all, come with some unique features as well. So that'll be cool to get into in the future. But for now, the first place we're going to start with are these emergency blankets. Okay, so emergency blankets are kind of usually known as like space blankets, survival blankets, or even first aid blankets. And they are these ultralight, reflective, compact sheets that are made up of Nylar. And believe it or not, they originally were developed by NASA back in the 1960s, and these have become an essential tool for outdoor enthusiasts, survivalists, and emergency first responders. Now, some of the key features about these blankets are, number one is their ability to retain heat. They can retain up to 90% of your body heat simply by reflecting that radiated heat that your body's putting off back towards your body, which obviously helps prevent against hypothermia and cold conditions. Another good thing about those is they are extremely lightweight and compact. They weigh just a few ounces, and they can easily be folded down to the size of a wallet, which is usually how they are found when they're packaged. They make them easy carrying in any pack. I have a few in my work vehicle, in the Rand Strategies Canine First Aid Kits. They also come with one because they just kind of fit in there easy and are just a no-brainer for the size and weight, to benefit ratio. It's a no-brainer to have one of those included with your kit. Another big thing is the fact that they are waterproof and they are windproof, and they are made could protect you, from moisture and wind, adding to their versatility in a survival type situation. Another benefit, they have a reflective surface. So when they're used with the reflective side facing outwards, they can protect you against overheating and sunburn by reflecting all that sunlight away. They are extremely versatile because, besides providing for warmth, they can be used to signal for help. Again, usually one side is, shiny silver, the other side is usually orange. So if you are in the snow, you would use the orange side. If you're out in the woods, in the grass, you could use the shiny reflective side to get the sunlight to bounce off of it. And if you had to, they could help make a shelter, again, because they're waterproof. And if you know how to do it, while they do grip somewhat easily, if you do it right, you can make a makeshift stretcher with those. So definitely a versatile piece of gear. Now, there is a big downside to them, and I think this is a problem with the company doesn't do a good job of explaining how to use them. Even in their marketing, you always see the person like wrapped up into it. They're just waiting to be rescued, and it's keeping them out of the elements. As I just said a second ago, they're windproof and they're waterproof, which means they basically serve as a vapor barrier. Well, if you are in a sub-freezing condition, even when you are, your body is constantly off-gassing. So it's constantly expelling moisture. So one of the big things there is if you are out in a below freezing temperature condition and you use that emergency blanket and wrap that around you to keep you warm, it will initially increase the warmth of your body and protect you from hypothermia. But because it is serving as also as a vapor barrier, all of that moisture that's coming off of your body just bounces off against the inside of it. Obviously, it turns into water vapor, water droplets that will freeze and fall back down on you. So if it ends up being a long-term type situation, you're actually going to do more harm than good and make yourself colder in the long run. So for short-term emergencies, perfectly fine, just wrap yourself in it. If you're out there for the long term, the knowledge that it takes to properly use one is the fact that either, and this would be kind of worst case scenario, make sure you're wearing some sort of material that retains its warmth even when it's wet. So, wool, or what's more commonly now, probably some type of merino wool would be really, really good. But even better than that would be to have like a wool blanket that you could put between, your body, the wool blanket, and then the emergency blanket or that vapor barrier, so that all of your off-gassing can come done. It can go through the wool blanket, hit that emergency blanket, turn to its ice crystals, fall back down, but it's not going to fall back on you. It's going to fall back on that wool blanket, which again retains its warming capabilities even when it gets wet. So that's a little bit in depth on those emergency blankets. They are a good thing. They are worth it to get because they cost like $5. But you got to make sure you're using it properly. The next most important thing that I would say would be hydration supplies, because staying hydrated is essential even in winter. And the problem is that cold weather can mask the signs of dehydration. So it's crucial that you monitor your fluid intake. You won't get as thirsty in the winter, unlike the summertime where, hey, it's hot, you're getting beat down, you get thirsty. In the wintertime, it takes a lot longer for you to develop that thirst. And it's not because you aren't volume depleted or in need just of fluid. It's just because it masks those signs and symptoms so your body doesn't react to it as quickly. So things that I have in my vehicle are water purification tablets because they're really easy to use. I always say, make sure you know how to, just don't have the gear, make sure you understand how to use it, because there is some learning to the fact of, hey, what is my ratio? How much water do I need to mix in with these tablets so it doesn't taste as bad or get me sick? And on that note, another thing along with the hydration supplies are some sort of flavoring component. I personally like liquid IV. I think they taste good. They're really nice. Drip Drop is another good one because there's no sorbitol or anything in those. And if you are going to use those water purification tablets, having something like that to put in the water to mask the taste of the tablets is really good, because it's not the most wonderful tasting thing to drink right when it's done doing its purification things. But and again, there's more to it than that, because you have to know how to use it. Something as little as, hey, if you're getting water from a stream and you put your water purification tablets in there, well, that's great. But all that water that got in around the lid as you were screwing the cap back down on there can still get you sick. So you have to make sure, hey, once you put that water in there, once the water is purified, flip the bottle over, undo the cap, let that purified water rinse off the cap, so you're not going to get yourself sick by trying to do the right thing. Beyond that, because those do have a learning curve on how to use them, is you can get something as simple as a water filter. I am a big fan of the Sawyer filter. So in my vehicle, I have both the water purification tablets as well as a Sawyer water filter, or even one of the Life Straws. That way you can just go and just kind of drink it up. There is no learning curve in there. You literally just pop it open and use it. The downside to the water filters or the Life Straws is the fact that once you get those wet, if you're out in a, below freezing environment, the water in there is going to freeze and, probably render that filter, useless after that one-time use. So that's kind of the pluses and minuses of the tablets versus some sort of water filter. Another thing, I kind of mentioned it a second ago when I got into, the emergency blankets. I said about, the clothing that you would wear, but carrying additional insulated clothing, always keep an extra layer of thermal layers, socks, gloves, hats. Keeping dry and warm is the key to preventing heat loss. So due for a work function, we just took a trip to Kentucky, and it was pretty wild. We missed a significant snowstorm literally by a day because we timed our travel right, and we're being situationally aware. We're watching the we're like, hey, if we don't leave now, there's a good chance we're going to be stuck here. So, we did get on the road early, and it was snowing, and we actually hit a couple of rough spots when we started getting up through the mountains of West Virginia. But I had my go bag in my buddy's truck because I was like, hey, even though I'm not taking my car, I'm going to bring the basics of what I would need. So it was good. And, in that, again, having, if you were to get stuck out of there, being able to change into a dry pair of clothes is huge. One of the biggest things that I do, or probably one of the, best things that I did, was no matter the, whether it's summertime, whether it's wintertime, I think an awesome piece of gear to always have with you or on you, obviously socks, but some sort of cheap like puffer jacket. The emergency one that I got off Amazon. It was on sale for like $25, and it is not of any high quality. The thing I'm sure will shred the first sticker bush that it gets into, but it does have some synthetic down insulation in it, and it's windproof. So the worst case, if it is a chilly spring night, chilly summer night, one extra layer in the winter, I always in my bag have an outer layer, thermal layer with me. And for the $25 that it cost me, the thing is ugly as sin. I hope to never have to wear it, but if I do, I always have it with me. So I think having extra layers, and again an outer layer that is a thermal layer, is a huge component to have into your hypothermia preparedness kit. And then since I mentioned that whole, trip to Kentucky, some of the things, again, like the gear items that it's always in my vehicle is, number one, like start putting together an emergency kit. So first and foremost with that would be a first aid kit. And with that, I would say tailor your first aid kit to the level of training that you have. So me as a paramedic, I can tell you my first aid kit is pretty robust, just because there's a lot that I know how to do and a lot of benefit that I can give to somebody if I happen to come across them and they're injured. I want to be able to make sure that I have the tools to do everything that I'm trained and competent in doing. So that would be huge. Obviously, a first aid kit is no brainer, but think of some of the smaller items in there too to be missing, like ibuprofen and Pepto-Bismol, and just those little items that, man, if you're stuck out somewhere and something hits you, or you have a headache, diarrhea, whatever, like, be able to treat that from your vehicle without having to go to a store to do it, because it takes up virtually no space. And man, if you go to need it, it'll be nice to have. Another thing is a good flashlight. And I don't mean, the flashlight on your phone doesn't count. So the majority of my work flashlights are all rechargeable because there's a charger in my car. I just pop them in, it's fine. However, on my duty belt and in my emergency kits, the flashlights that are in there are ones that take batteries, because if you're somewhere that's prolonged or for some reason it didn't charge and you need the flashlight right then, you don't have time to sit there and charge it up. So get some sort of flashlight that just takes regular batteries. The one that I carry in my survival kit, I keep the batteries stored separate from it. That way there's no chance of them draining out. And it just makes it, not as convenient, but at least I know that it's going to work when I put those batteries in there and turn it on. Another thing that you could consider is if you're in an area where you think of, hey, I would be worried about signaling for help, well, then put a whistle in there. The one thing, if you're going to look into a whistles, if you're asking for a recommendation, the Fox 40 whistles are the time-tested whistle. That's what I have on my chest rig for my radio when I'm doing the wildfire stuff. You can't beat those. If you're not familiar, that is the whistles that the NFL officials use. It's the ones, if you've ever heard those whistles that the lifeguards on the beach use, it is the Fox 40. That would be the one that I would say to get. And then beyond that, some sort of multi-tool. I say that over a fixed blade knife because it may not be something that you just need a knife. You may actually need one of the other tools like the screwdriver or the pliers that come in there, or the wire cutters, whatever the case is. I would say try to incorporate a multi-tool in there, not just a straight blade knife. And then as far as stuff for your vehicle, again, this is centered around, winter weather emergencies. So some sort of ice scraper or snow brush, because there are, I'm sure, a magnitude of examples where people's windshield wipers just stopped working in the middle of an ice or snowstorm, whether they're iced down, whether the motor just gives out, whatever the case is. It would be nice that a buildup of snow or ice on your windshield doesn't stop you dead in your tracks because you can't see. So just something like that, have a scraper, being able to clear your window, keep going for a little bit, ices over again, pull over, scrape it off again, keep your momentum or your progress to wherever it is you're getting to going, and not stop dead by the fact that your windshield wipers stop working. Another thing that's good, I would say, yeah, jumper cables are good, but a jump box. You can get those off Amazon. They work with capacitors. Those things, I've never had to jump my own vehicle, but I have used my jump box to jump, I don't know how many others. And I'm not talking like the big jump boxes. I'm talking about there are these little things, because they're run through with capacitors. They are incredibly powerful. You can store them virtually anywhere. And it's one of those things, to the fact of, being able to be self-sufficient and not have to rely on somebody else finding you and then hoping that they have jumper cables in order to jump your car, just seems like a no-brainer. So yeah, get one of the jump boxes. I don't think you're ever going to, be sad that you did. Another thing, winter weather, would be some sort of snow chains. Now, snow chains, putting on and off, are a pain in the butt. And if you're putting chains on before your car, before you go, kudos to you. This is more for, hey, if you happen to get stuck in an area, they make like emergency snow zip ties that are just a big thick cable zip tie. And if you need traction, they're easy to put on. They're a one-time use. You cut them off when you're done. But I think having those in your vehicle as well is something that they don't take up much space. If you did need them, why not have them ready to go? And then also, since we're talking about being in the vehicle and driving to wherever it is you're going, probably home, one thing we have to also talk about is navigation. So let's say the majority of us, I'm sure the overwhelming majority of us, probably rely on our phones for navigation purposes. But this is going to be the time your phone battery dies, or you dropped your phone and the screen cracked for whatever reason. Your phone has now been taken out of the fight. So what is your backup means to do that? If you're one of these people like me, and you have a capability to read an ADC map book, then by all means have an ADC map book in your car. A paper map is fine. Full disclosure, to be completely honest, do not have any sort of paper map in my vehicle. I know that's not the smartest move, but what I do have is 2 additional GPS units. So number one, my watch is GPS capable, so I can use that to navigate, as well as a additional like handheld, old school, Garmin GPS with topographic maps, the whole bit. The thing we're going to get into here is the fact that, like we always say when we're getting into the comm stuff, you can have all of the gear in the world. If you don't train with it, and you don't know how to use it, it's useless. So if you do have one of these watches, that's awesome. It amazes me though how many guys I run into training at work, different functions, and I'm like, oh hey, just do X, Y, Z, and they're like, dude, I have no idea how to do that. So it's kind of like, oh, it's great, you have that watch, but you have no idea how to use it. So learn how to do that. There's a bunch of cool features, especially in these Garmin watches. I'm a big fan of them. But also pre-plan it. So like I have my home preset into this, and if you worry about OPSEC, or operational security, one of the things is I have home set into here, but it doesn't actually come back to my house. It comes back to the general area in which I live, that I could if I was blind, I could get home from that location. So if you did lose this watch, somebody gets it, can't then go drive to your house. But just little stuff like that. Be thinking of that. Like, hey, if my phone didn't work, I had to rely on some other means. 1, do I know how to actually do that? And then 2, set it up so it works for you and it's not fighting against you. And then right along with that, because tech is such a big part of everything that we do, well, all tech needs power. So those little juice boxes, battery banks, whatever you want to do, have, one or two of those in your vehicle kind of charged up, ready to go. And then what I also like to do is, virtually everything now takes a USB-C. So tape a little USB-C charging cord onto that. And one of the little, go on Amazon and buy an extra Garmin, proprietary plug and tape that to it. That way, if you do get into that problem, if you are using it for navigation and the battery on that starts to die, well, not only do you have a charger, but you have the cable to charge it as well. And we just mentioned a second ago about, having chains for your car or those emergency cables. But if you are stuck and you can't get out, having flares, yes, they do play, they can mark your location. They can provide safety if your car is disabled in the roadway or just off of the roadway. It's also a fire starting capability. So having a couple of flares or even reflective triangles in there just to make yourself visible is really good. If you are disabled, this could just be another job for that emergency blanket, because we said they have the reflective side, they have the orange side. You cut a piece of that off and hang that up somewhere to try to mark your location or mark where your vehicle is disabled at. So, anything like that is kind of good to have in there. And then a big thing that kind of would easily get overlooked at is, for all of my fellow contact wearers out there, is having an extra set of glasses or contacts, because it doesn't even have to be in a winter weather emergency disaster situation. If you're anywhere and your contact just, quits on you and starts to hurt, or you lose it or whatever, my goodness, let me tell you, it has been more than once that I've opened up my trunk and been like, man, thank God I have these pair of, old glasses in here so I can at least get home, or, let me pop the other contact out and put a brand new set in. That's something that's easily overlooked, but really good to have, and can make your life a whole lot easier if it's there. And since we're on kind of, creature comforts, another big thing is, if you're going to be stuck somewhere overnight, when I do those wildfire deployments, man, let me tell you, I am one of those people. I have to brush my teeth every night, every morning. So something as simple as also have a toothpaste in that bag with your spare clothes and a little travel toothbrush. Man, you talk about a morale boost come the morning time or that night. It can make all the difference in the world. So there's just a couple small things, to throw into a little side bag to keep in your vehicle. And if you need them, you'll be glad that you have them. Beyond that, a couple of the extra things that I keep in my car is duct tape. Duct tape, that will pretty much fix 90% of the problems that exist, at least temporarily. So, you don't even have to keep a full roll of it. If you just rip a whole bunch off and then fold it over on top of itself and have, probably just at least 3 feet of it, you'd be amazed at what you could fix if you just had a piece of duct tape. So that's good to have. Another thing is, a small shovel. You got to dig yourself out of somewhere. Having a small shovel can be worth its weight. There are some, military surplus supply ones that you can get relatively cheap, and they fold up pretty compactly. So that's an option. Trash bags are always good to have. It is amazing, again, what you can find the need or the use of trash bags for if you are in a situation where you need something that's waterproof, you need to protect gear from something, you're just out somewhere and you need to throw trash somewhere. Well, you have a trash bag to put it in, so that's awesome. With it too, maybe some extra engine oil or coolant, depending on if you have one of those cars and your car eats engine oil. By all means, carry an extra quart. Then one of the biggest things I would say, and this I actually put in my bag on that trip to Kentucky, because we went in the wintertime, it was an extended trip on the road, is a sleeping bag. That's one of those things, hey, if we do break down or we do get into an accident or slide off the road, whatever the case is, and we're going to be stuck out here, for any prolonged period of time, number one, it's a somewhat decent emergency shelter. Even if we're going to be stuck in the vehicle, being able to get that much more warm is awesome. And even if it's not a life or death survival due to the cold situation, just the fact that, hey, we're going to be stuck here overnight. If you're cold, you don't sleep, or at least you don't sleep well, and that can make every day that's reoccurring after that absolutely miserable. So just the fact that that sleeping bag could allow you to get a good night's sleep could make the following day's activities, actually possible to do and complete. So that's pretty much all I got on this one. How I would say to kind of end this and bring it all together would be the fact of, if you do put together a bag, if you are going to put stuff in your vehicle, make sure, number one, you do regular checks. Periodically check your supplies, ensure that everything's in good condition and it's not expired, because things, that are left in a car, left in a bag, just through the nature of it getting really hot and getting really cold, virtually everything will have, some sort, if not official, expiration date on it. So it's just good to kind of keep up on that stuff. In addition to that, when you are kind of putting it together, make sure you pack smartly, organize items in a way that allows for you to get to them quickly in an emergency. And then honestly, stay informed. Keep an eye on the weather forecast, then, road conditions before your trip. That's one of the things that I was really, loving hearing was earlier today, on one of the local repeaters, there were guys on there talking about the winter storms that are coming in. They were talking about some of the preparedness stuff as far as the generators at their house that they're doing and, steps that they're taking just to get ready, just in case anything would happen. So I love hearing that. It's one of those things that, winter can be very unpredictable, but preparedness is your best defense against the elements. By stocking your emergency kit with the essential hypothermia supplies and survival gear, you can go out and face the cold with confidence. Now, here at Ranch Strategies and Medicine in Bad Places, we are committed to ensuring that you have the knowledge and the tools necessary to navigate any challenge, but in this case specifically, winter's challenges. So embrace the beauty of the season, but remember, preparation is key and enjoying the moment safely. If you need any, gear items, we always say buy your gear items from a quality distributor. Go to medicineandbadplaces.com, go to their store. If you are looking for something on there and you need a discount code, let me know in the comments. I'll see if I can, arrange. Well, I know I can arrange to hook you up with a good discount code. So let me know what supplies you're going to be getting, and then I can get them to you at somewhat of a discount. So, that's pretty cool. And then we have all sorts of stuff coming up, guys. We have training courses coming up, tactical emergency casualty care classes, tactical rappel master classes, live fire medical training coming up, a whole bunch of stuff. So a lot more to come, a lot more content to come. I have a lot planned, especially, again, getting into some heavy comm stuff. I just need to focus, when I do these videos, of kind of like what's on my mind in the moment, what's relevant in the moment. So that's why I took the time and did a winter, preparedness one for ourselves. So I hope you enjoyed this. Guys, if you got anything out of this, if you took one tiny little tidbit of anything that I said and was like, ooh, I didn't think of that, I'll take that, then this video is worth watching. So please give it a like, please share, please don't forget to subscribe. Stay warm, be safe.